Kia ora, welcome to this episode in Season 5 of Recovering. I'm Frank Ritchie, minister, chaplain and radio broadcaster. Recovering is a Media Chaplaincy New Zealand podcast highlighting the excellent work of Aotearoa New Zealand journalists. Media Chaplaincy is a team of chaplains around the country offering free, independent and confidential support for media professionals. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with a leading journalist to discuss the story that's had the biggest impact on them both personally and professionally.
The 58-year-old grandmother has lost the lower half of her body, amputated in a radical hemicorporectomy operation.
In this episode, I sat down with Amanda Gillies. Amanda is a legendary multi-award winning journalist and broadcaster. After her early days at the Gisborne Herald, she worked at TV3 for over 2 decades as a news and current affairs journalist. She was also co-host of the AM show for 5 years and is currently a host on the Detail podcast. In this episode, we cover her confronting story of a Te Kūiti grandmother.
Have you told them you'll be homeless?
Yeah.
And what
I said,
say?
I'll go and live under a bridge then. And she's like, do what you want.
The story highlights Amanda's positivity, her passion, and her love of storytelling. Amanda, it is an honour to have you on here. I've followed your career now for a number of years and have watched you go through some big shifts in how you apply your craft, thinking through the Campbell Live years and the investigative journalism, Nightline early on.
Oh God, you're going way back
2001, I believe,
Yes.
You started on Nightline. And then you had the AM show for 5 years and now into podcasting with The Detail and back to investigative journalism. So it is a pleasure to have you here.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And as we were talking before we started recording, I've been following you, especially your Sunday nights with your radio career and also what you're doing with this. It's fantastic and it's just lovely to have that warmth and engagement you have with people. It's a delight. So thank you. I feel very honoured to be here. So thank you.
It's good. It's good to have something that feels mutual.
Yes, although I do feel, as I've said, very nervous on this side. I would much rather be interviewing you, which I think will happen one day, hopefully soon. But yeah, so just wish me luck and I hope I behave.
It is a weird experience though, isn't it? When you're used to being the people who tell the stories and you do the interviews. I've read a number of stories that have been about you now, things like Woman's Day. But it is a weird thing being on the other side of the microphone.
I get so nervous. And I've been in broadcasting for nearly 30 years, which is showing my age. But I now feel so grateful to people who have been interviewed by me because they've been so generous and so open and so wonderful. And I think, God, what if I'm crap talent? If you're sitting there thinking, why on earth did we invite this woman on? So I will try my hardest for you.
Now, of course, life for you goes all the way back to Gisborne.
Yes.
How did you get started?
So I come from a family of journalists. So basically, Uncle Ian Gillies, he just passed away this year, aged 89. He's the legend. So if there was a hierarchy system, you'd have Uncle Ian right up the top, and he was the editor of the Gisborne Herald for years and a legend, won every award under the sun and was just the most beautiful writer. Then under him, you'd have Angus Gillies and JD, John Gillies, that's his sons, and incredible. Then you drop a whole lot. And then you'd find me down here somewhere. But I was lucky enough for them to be my bosses or my mentors and/or mentors, at the Gisborne Herald or TV3. So as a kid, I used to go to the Gisborne Herald to see Uncle Ian. He's my dad's brother, oldest brother, and he was boss of the family. And I remember going into the newsroom and I was mesmerised. And this is back in the day, and I'm talking a long time ago, with the old clickety-clack typewriters. You know, there was heavy smoke in the room. There was that sense of urgency and yelling, and in the corner there was like a red telephone booth because you had to take your calls in there, the old wind-up and stuff, so you could be heard. And I was just like, holy hell, this is amazing. Then the years of LA Law came about, and that was just a wee bit sexy, and I quite fancied myself. I object, Your Honour. And so Careers Day came, and they took me to the Gisborne District Courthouse. What I didn't realise is it was call-over day, so it was things like truck drivers getting pulled over for not putting their lunch into their logbook and stuff. And I was like, holy hell, where's all the sexiness? You know, where's Harry Hamlin getting up and doing his thing? So that afternoon I went back to the Gisborne Herald, and that was it. I was just sold, and I thought, this is home and this is what I want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in the blood then, completely
In the
in
blood,
the DNA.
yeah. And the loveliest thing is, as while I endorse nepotism, there was no favours. And so Uncle Ian, JD, Angus, I remember my first piece I gave to John. He was the deputy chief reporter, and I was so proud. And I was 21. I did a year in radio and then 3 years at the Gisborne Herald, and I presented it in front of everyone. And he literally, with his red pen, the dreaded red pen, put a line through it, handed it back, and he said, "Less flowery next time." And I was so aghast, and so I thought it was like pretty much going to go through for some award. But they were tough, fair but tough. So when you did good work, you knew you'd done good work. But they didn't do any favours, but they just beautifully mentored me to try and get the best out of me. And took a lot of work, but we got there, I think, I hope, in the end.
Just for your interest, I own an Olivetti Lettera 32 typewriter. And one of the reasons I own one is because I know it was used in a lot of New Zealand newsrooms around the country.
Oh, do you know exactly where? Do you know the exact history or
of that particular typewriter? That one wasn't. No, I don't. I bought it secondhand. I've got no idea, but I know that model was used in a lot of New Zealand newsrooms.
A lot of good stories would have come from that.
Oh yeah, and just the mystique of the newsroom with the clackety clack going away, the coffee, the smoke, just the nostalgia and the romance around that is magnificent.
Romance is the perfect word for it. I know, and I remember John Jones, he used to wear the cap, he was the chief reporter, and he epitomised a chief reporter. And there was just noise and news was happening in front of you, and it was that beautiful urgency, and there was shorthand right scribbling, and, I just thought, this is where life happens. Yeah. And so it was so cool to work there for 3 years. I think it was must have been the late 90s I was there, and it was just a joy.
I didn't know about the year in radio.
Oh, not many people do. If there was an award for worst drive time announcer, I would probably have that. I think I got better. I hope I got better. But Stuart Dwight, who was a great Gisborne guy, who lives up in Auckland now, and he's amazing. And he kind of took me under his wing. And I did 2 till 6. And this shows how long ago it was. It was the hits of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and today. And I would have long pauses where I would be thinking, what do I say now? Or it was the day of the old carts, and I would mix. Oh, it was appalling, but a lot of fun.
I would love to. This is me just riffing off sideways now.
Yes, do it.
I would love to revive Love Songs Till Midnight.
Oh, yes.
But I would make it. Yeah, Gail was magnificent. I would make it Love Songs Till 9:30 because you need the music, you need the chance for the music to do what it's supposed to do. And for most of us now, once you hit middle age, midnight's a bit late, so it has to be 9:30.
9:30? You are talking my language. Dinner at 5.
Yeah. And it's got to be, my co-host Jackson and I on Sunday nights have joked about how we would put out recipes if we're going to do that show as well. Because if the music is going to achieve what it needs to achieve, you have to have eaten the right sort of food beforehand.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to be lying there like, ugh, but, you want to enjoy it like, chicken bow wow,
Exactly.
You want to get in the mood. I like this. I think, honestly, all my girlfriends would be into this.
Love Songs Till 9:30 with recipes.
Oh, hell yes. That's a winner. I like it. I will be listening in, I promise.
All right. It doesn't sound like you went off and studied somewhere. Was all the training on the job? Or
No,
did you...
I did like a cadetship through the Gisborne Herald, and I did New Zealand Radio School, and I did a course through New Zealand Broadcasting School. But I started off doing a degree, but I just knew all I wanted to do was, the irony was to do print journalism, because I thought I'd go to the Gisborne Herald, and then I ended up doing radio first for that first year, then we made redundant, and then got into the Gisborne Herald, and I always thought I'd probably go back to that, but never did. But you just did your cadetship through in that era of doing it. So yeah, different now where you do 3-4 year degrees based in, broadcasting or communications or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. So 3 years at the Gisborne Herald, and then Nightline comes along, and you audition for that. Whatever possessed you to shift to television then?
Well, Angus Gillies, again, nepotism. He was like the rising star of our family, and he was working for TV3. So I did my 21st birthday, which is actually, this is great irony, is it's my 49th birthday this Friday. So it shows how long ago that was. And he said, come up and do a week's work experience with us, because he was the Nightline producer. And I loved it. And Mark Jennings said to me, I was obviously just turned 21, and he said, you need to work on your voice, because hell, there's a lot of nasal tone going on here, and I sounded like a baby. And he said, you need some experience for writing. And so that's where the Gisborne Herald came in. And then I actually went back, and that's how Nightline, and I was actually heading overseas at the time. So I did my year in radio, 3 years at the Gisborne Herald, and my then fiance was a helicopter pilot, and he said, let's go work overseas. And so we went to flying out to Sydney that night to do the interview, and Angus rang that morning. I may or may not have been a little hungover, may have had a girlfriend's birthday the night before, and Angus said, where are you? And I said, I'm in Auckland, I'm flying out tonight. And he said, Mark Jennings wants to see you today. Jumped back in the shower and got myself ready. And I think Jennings thought I was so quiet because I was feeling so like, whew. Anyway, and then he called me while we were in Sydney and said, well, you have the job. And I was like, holy heck. And I said to my partner at the time, I said, look, it'll be 3 years max, and then we can go and do whatever you want. And then I lost the partner, but stuck with the job. So, yeah.
23 years at TV3.
Like a piece of old furniture they couldn't get rid of.
Yeah, which is the story of so many people who were part of TV3. It was their whole career, feeling like you're working for the plucky little guy who's fighting the big monster up against the big brother or whatever. 23 years is a solid stretch. That again has got to get in your bones.
I loved TV3 from day one. I remember I walked in and there was a bucket on the ground, and I was like, what's that for? And they were like, oh, that's to catch the drips. And I was like, excellent. But they just have, and I know this word is overused, but it's like a family. And I had literal family there with Angus, but it was just the most, I don't know, everyone knew we were the underdogs. Everyone got in there together. We didn't have the flash resources. We didn't have the money or the funding or anything like that. But boy, we had passion and we had drive. And, you know, I worked under Phil Corkery in Christchurch, legend. Gordon McBride in Wellington, legend. You know, you had your Fiona McMillans, your Justine Shorts, Mike Brocky, John Hale, just in an era, the tail end of that golden era. And it was just magical. You know, and you work with John Campbell and you work with Hilary Barry, you worked with the greats, Bob McNeil, my God, he could tell a story. And you just soaked up everything. And there was no egos, there were no, forgive my language, dickheads. It was just cool people doing great stuff. And it was just like a drug, yeah. And it was a hard one to give up, to be honest. Yeah,
no doubt. You mentioned the greats. And I know you wouldn't put yourself in there, but I'd put you in there. When you think about the shows that you've been a part of, Nightline, Campbell Live, the AM show, like these were household names, titles. People remember those. For some people, some of those are a big part of their life, particularly Campbell Live.
Yeah,
so
huge.
You're known. You are one of the legends. But to have gone through each of those and watch them get canned.
Yeah.
Nightline, Campbell Live, the AM show. How's that experience been?
I think the day that John Campbell left the building, I just realised no one was untouchable, because he is, we know, he is brilliant. You know, he is in a class of his own. And, you know, when they said it was going, and I remember there was protests outside, he just connected with New Zealanders. He has an innate ability to do it. And what you see is what you get, you know, and I always thought he would be untouchable. And when he left, I thought, any one of us can go at any time. And in the end, it got me a few years later, you know, with the closure of Newshub. But it's devastating because people do invest. You know, you become familiar to people, and that's the lovely part of the job, people stopping you in the street and having a chitty chat and stuff, and that was the lovely part about AM. But you invest so much and you're so proud of what you do, and then to have someone just come along and go, nah, not working for us. That's it, you know. Put a line through it, next, younger, cheaper, whatever comes through. And that's just the nature of our rather brutal industry at the moment.
Yeah, and to find out that the dollars are almost more important than the stories.
Yeah, And we told some great stories. And, I look at JC alone when they raised some money for a kid who needed work on his teeth. And I think they raised like over 100K. Like he had that kind of reach. He made a difference to people's lives. Hillary became mum of the nation. Like you connect with people. And I think they have an incredible ability to look through the camera and they're just talking to you. And I love that. That old school TV3 talent is... Yeah, it was just magic. And I feel very, very privileged to have worked alongside them, to have worked on their shows, to have seen them in action. And I think you learn a lot when they're out in the field and how they deal with people and they give people time. They're not too big for anyone. They're not too cool for anything. They're just real. And yeah, it's pretty inspiring.
See, I think this is valuable and I really like this because I think people now are, to a degree, understandably, perceiving the media through politics and the wrangling that goes on in politics and missing the everyday stories that get told, which is why I like the story you want to talk about today. I think it's really important for people to remember that a lot of the media is not what they see going on in politics. It's that storytelling of everyday New Zealanders. And that stuff's really important.
That is why, and I hate with funding cuts, we don't get to the regions, because I think the regions is the beating heart of New Zealand, rural New Zealand. And I think it's where you get some of your best characters and some of your best stories, because that's where you find out what's really going on, what people really think. They are so in touch with each other, with the country, what's going on. And I think with funding cuts, you often don't have the money to get a stringer to go there or to go stay there and stuff. And I think we're losing part of who we are by doing that. And that's funding cuts. But yeah, every story when it's got a beating heart, when you get into that and you get to the real people and you get to their emotion and you get to that heart, there is nothing better. I love it and I almost get excited as I'm thinking about it, as opposed to politicians are great and you need that and it's, what they do is obviously policy and what drives the country. But when you get out in those regions or you find that character that just cuts through, it is just priceless. I love it.
Since you're obviously excited about that, how was it moving from what you were doing into the AM show and sitting at a desk every morning after getting up at 3:30 a.m.?
The 3:30 a.m. I never got used to. That was brutal. It was hard, and I'll be honest, it probably took a couple of years. I didn't find it a natural fit at all. And I had been... so probably quite vainly, I was okay at doing journalism out in the field and I loved it. There was a real passion and I loved... My Uncle Ian told me one of the first things he says is, Amanda, every story matters to someone. And I was like... And he goes, you're not too big, you're not, too good to do anything. Doesn't matter if it was the dustman or the Prime Minister, you treated them the same, you gave them the same respect, time and energy because it matters to that person, it matters to that person. So that's what I loved about being in the field, just spending time with people. Suddenly, and I was not, and am not, I can say that honestly, a natural newsreader, your Carol Hirschfeld, your Hilary Barry, your Sam Hayes, who are beautiful, and Carolyn Robinson is just pitch perfect as a newsreader. And I struggled and I kind of I felt like an imposter because you went from being okay at something to not being so okay at something. And I really struggled, and I had two men who I adore, Duncan and Mark, who were big personalities, and I sort of felt a little bit that I was drowning. And then March 15 happened and I went down there for a week by myself with Olivia. She was our producer, and we went down and it was fantastic, and I was back out in the field and I was back talking to people, and it was, I think, enough to give me my mojo back. And I kind of came back in the studio and it was sort of things started clicking back into place. But then I did 2 years back in the field after AM show finished, and it was quite lovely. Nerve-wracking again going back to what you were doing. But yeah, so it was certainly a different experience, and loved it by the end. I'm not going to lie, I loved AM by the end of it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah. And, you have those magic and, you're tired as anything and you're as fragile as anything. And so, but you just had some magic moments, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. The story that we're going to talk about.
Yes.
Bev. It's about her, obviously, in
Yeah.
the story, because it's a very moving story, and it's a story of justice, but it's also about the timing of that story. But we'll get into the timing after we tell the story. So tell us about Bev.
So Bev McIndoe rang me at TV3, and she says, I've got a story for you. And you're like, okay, cool.
Can I just pause you there? Because I'm sure that happens reasonably regularly.
Yeah.
I've got a story. What do you normally think, feel, do when you get someone saying, I've got a story for you?
I'm always interested. So I'm probably a very easy audience in that
okay.
sense. Like I'm like, oh, what have you got?
Yeah.
And sometimes they're ravers and, but you give them your time, because I think always if they've had the decency and the goodwill to call you, you have a listen. Maybe you don't encourage too much, but she said, I've had a hemicorporectomy. And I was like, I beg your pardon. She said, Google it. So I had a phone and I Googled it, and oh my God, holy hell. A hemicorporectomy is where they cut you off half your body. So she's amputated basically from the belly button down. Some of the pictures.
So she's got no bottom half of her body.
Half. Gone, missing.
Yeah.
And so some of the pictures on the internet are blurred because they're deemed that sort of graphic. And I was thinking, I actually thought, are you punking me? And I was like, are you serious? And she said, yes, I am. And she said, I'm at a motel, I'm on ACC, and they're about to kick me out of the motel. And I was like, where are you? And she said, I'm in Te Kūiti. And then when I talked to her, she had so much detail. And what I loved about her is she was hilarious. Like, she was very straight up. Again, one of those characters from the region. And I said to her, cool, okay. And I said again, we were on, obviously, things were tight, as we would find out. And I said, look, can we just, Liam and I, go down? And they were like, yeah, just go check it out. And I said, sweet. In Te Kūiti. And she was incredible. And I just couldn't take my eyes off her, because she is literally half a body. She is from here, everything. Just nothing from down there. And, all sorts of questions. It's like, how do you go to the toilet? So she has a little bag for her wheeze and a little bag for her number twos. And it's basically, they just sort of stretch it round, so it's just smooth like you would if you had an amputated knee. And she was so beautifully honest, open. I said, can we film? And she was like, film what you like, And she had the wickedest sense of humour. And I thought, holy hell, you are incredible. But what had happened is she'd had a bike accident, a motorbike out of Gisborne, out of home. So again, I was like, oh, this woman, we've got a bit in common. And she said they were on a motorbike. She went in, she slid off. One of her family members she thought was having a wee on the side of the road. So she was going in and she thought slid. And even as she said, she thought, uh-oh, this is going to hurt. Slid in and woke up. I think she had 15 surgeries or something, all on her spine, but as it got worse and worse and worse, and she got infections and they kept doing operations and it just wasn't happening, and lost a huge amount of weight. Operations weren't working, and they were basically, you're going to die, because the infections was just going to keep going up. And that's when she said to them, well, can you cut it off? Because it was basically her bum and lower spine down. And they were like, well, we could cut it off, but it's never been done before. And she was just like, just do it. And so I think she is the first and only one in New Zealand to have had it done. And she said instantly it was like instant relief, instant success. And they said, do you need morphine? And she was like, nope, I don't. And so she had a big house. It needed to be modified. And ACC said, look, we'll modify that and put you in this motel. She said, great. So she was selling her house because she said the house needed so much work and modification. She was in a wheelchair. She had a full-time carer. There are issues that go with this. So she wanted to build a custom-built house for her that would cater for all her needs and what she needed. And she needed to be certain width and hallway so she could get the wheelchair and get around and stuff like that. And it was on a Friday, I think it was, and the motel manager said to her, oh, so you're out? And she was like, excuse me? And they said, oh, and she used to have the carer used to be in the next room to her at the motel, and ACC had decided to pull the plug on her funding for the motel, and she just wanted one more year to build the house. And she said, but I'll be homeless. I don't have the money. Everything's tied up and stuff. And it was pretty brutal. Like, this is a woman who's lost half her body. And you think, isn't this what we're meant to have ACC for? She'd had a bike accident. She'd gone to hell and back. She's, her attitude was incredible despite everything she'd been through. And I thought, these are the kind of people we want to help, because she still wanted to be a part of society. She was a mother, a grandmother. She was an absolute delight. She'd had to give up her job. She'd lost so much. And to hear it from the motel manager. And, ACC has their side of the story, and they said we tried to get in touch with her and it hadn't happened and stuff. And in the end, they did kick her out, which was really heartbreaking. And she just got up, but they did modify what she needed to get done and stuff. So another person came forward after they saw the story and said, look, we'll put you up in our place, we'll help you out and stuff. So it was good. So she wasn't homeless. But she gave me hope, and we can talk about this shortly, at a time I think that my cameraman and I really needed it. Yeah.
She struck me as an amazing character. I watched the video today.
Oh, nice.
And she's quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
And so I was amazed at the storytelling as well, because it would be very easy to turn that into quite a highly emotive sob story. But you guys didn't do that. It was just very matter of fact. The story reflected her personality. I think you really did her justice.
Thank you. And I think that's when I walked in and she was basically like, "G'day, mate." And then she was more worried about what we'd been through. And I just thought, oh my God, I got nothing to worry about. She is fine. And she was so smart and funny and independent, and she put life into perspective. And she was awesome. And again, there probably could have been a tendency to do it, but part of her appeal and her charm was she was so real, and she wasn't a victim, She was very matter of fact, and she was, when they said, you're probably from seeing the story, like they said, oh, have you checked your junk mail? And she's like, oh, I'm not a dum-dum. Like she was just very cool. And a lot of people, she resonated with a lot of people, because they were like, why are we doing this? This is a good Kiwi woman, Yeah. Just help her out. Oh,
to the degree where her and her family were very conscious of saying they were very grateful for ACC.
Yes.
So they weren't trying to hammer ACC and take ACC down like some massive justice crusade. Very grateful. They just wanted this next step.
1 year was all they needed. And I think it was the way it had been dealt with. And it just left a bad taste in her mouth. But obviously that was the day as we were travelling there, when we left in the morning. You'll laugh at this. When we left in the morning from Auckland to Te Kūiti, and we got a phone call about halfway through there, and the cameraman's boss rang and said to him, Liam, there's a meeting at 11 o'clock and we really want you to be a part of it. And Liam was like, oh. And we thought that the meeting was going to be to tell him that he was going to the Olympics to be the cameraman. And
so hung up and we're really excited.
We were so excited, and we were like, I was like, I bet it is, because we'd been talking about it earlier. And he was like, I'll be finding out shortly if I'm going to the Olympics. And he's the most beautiful shooter and cameraman. And I was like, this is so it. I'm so proud. This is great. Then I started getting these text messages from friends from workmates saying, what's going on? And, and I was like, I don't know. And we got this 11 o'clock meeting, and then the intensity started building. But we then knew something was up. We just didn't know what. And then it got to 11 o'clock, and we were about 5 minutes out of Te Kūiti, and we pulled over, and we had literally log trucks. We were on this old country road, and there were log trucks, really bad, like connection and stuff. So we kind of heard closing and sad. And Liam and I were looking at each other like, hey? And then next person, the HR came up, and she was like in tears, and she said, I'm so sorry, we will look after you. And then Liam and I were like, pardon me? And we were sitting in the car together, and we were like, holy hell, are we closing? Anyway, they'd finished up the meeting. It was pretty brief, because it was so brutal. And they said, we'll have more meetings as you come along. And anyway, my boss rang, and she said, look, do you want to come back to Auckland now? And I was like, well, there's no point. I'm 5 minutes out of Te Kūiti. We've got a story here. I'll go do it. So we walk in, and we were in shock. Newshub's closing, hundreds of jobs, our livelihoods. Liam's not going to the Olympics. We were like, holy, and we were stunned. And it was just starting, it got fed to the media very quickly, as you can imagine. And so you want to tell family, and you want to tell your husband, and you want to tell the kids. And anyway, we walked in, and there was Bev McIndoe with half a body, with a wicked sense of humour and a huge heart, concerned about us. And I just thought, you know what? We're totally fine. And it was an instant. And she had us laughing and Liam and I, and the whole just mood changed. And she was incredible. And I walked out of there and thought, I'm fine. You're fine. It's okay. We're going to fight for this woman. You know, we're going to do what we can. And I thought, if she can live with half a body and have that sort of attitude and sense of humour, yeah, just came back to Auckland. And it literally just changed everything, like in a second.
Far out.
Yeah.
That's something, eh?
Yeah.
Because of my faith, I have a belief in things like angels. And angels are messengers. Now, how that plays out, mystery. I'm not going to try and dive into all that theology, but Bev in that moment sounds like an angel to me. The person who's able to deliver you something that pulled you into the moment. Bev pulled you away from the tragedy and into the moment. That's magnificent.
That's exactly what she did. She was like our angel, and she was, and everything was okay from then. And I'm pleased I wasn't in the Auckland newsroom, because that would have had a different outcome. And I sort of feel a little bit disconnected, but I'm okay with that. And what I loved about it is I came back and it was very TV3. Kim Haring was producing, and she looked at this story and she was like, bloody hell, this is the lead story. This is great. This is the sort of story we want. And I thought, this is so TV3. I just loved it. And she's like, have as long as you like, this is great. And I thought, it just felt like a slice of old TV3 and that kind of can-do attitude and doing one for the people. And so what could have been a very traumatic day and what was that moment, just bang. Yeah. And I've just kept that, I think, with me. Whenever you think you're having a bad day, you're like, actually, I'm okay.
Yeah, clearly it's stuck, because for this podcast, you could have chosen from any number of stories. So to choose that one shows that it has quite a big place.
Well, I think it did change the narrative, completely on how I was feeling, and I think how you could treat what was quite a traumatic experience, and to lose something that had been part of your life for 23 years. And it wasn't just me. It's not seeing all those people every day. It's the livelihoods. A friend had just become a dad. It's all those things that you just think, holy hell, everyone's life's upended, and that's what sucks. But I think by having Bev there, my little angel, she was, and she is an angel, I just think, it's okay.
23 years in one place, one culture, one company's way of doing things, even though you've shifted around a number of shows, then having to move out from that and into other places. How has that been? Different cultures, different ways of being.
I want to say yes, but my boss is my longtime boss from TV3.
Yeah. Of course.
Yes, it's like, of course it is. I haven't gone that far. The girl who sits next to me, the beautiful Gwen, the girl, she's a woman. She worked at the project. And I look across and there's like Guy on and Pip Keen and Lisa Owen and Mihi Narangi Forbes. So there's a very TV3 culture at RNZ. Interestingly, and I might be saying too much here, when we finished at TV3 and my husband said, what do you want to do? Where are you going? And we wrote a list on where we wanted to work and who you want to work for. And I met with one of the guys and who I hopefully will one day work for, but there's nothing there at the moment. And I will admit RNZ was down my list because for some reason, I think I just had an old school RNZ thing in my head where I'd be smoking pipes and, I don't know, knee-high socks and sandals, whatever.
If only.
If only, exactly. And so when this opportunity came up, and we were actually in Fiji having a holiday to mark the end of, it was actually a delayed honeymoon to mark the end of TV3, and I got a text message on the 4:30 on the Friday afternoon from Mark Jennings saying, I was about to do his voice, but I won't. But saying, can you be at RNZ on Monday morning at 9 a.m? I didn't know really what for, what role I would be doing, whatever. But I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And I walked into RNZ like the first day of school, and I was so nervous and like kind of out of sorts and didn't know what to expect. And Taylor Sincock, who I used to be my so-called work husband at TV3, who I sat next to, was there walking in with Dan Rutledge, who also used to be at TV3. And I thought, okay, this is a good sign. This is okay. And then we walked up and I fell in love with RNZ. We're in the old building, but it reminds me of old TV3. It is got a newsroom feel. The people are gorgeous. The culture is gorgeous. I love the stories they do are amazing. And I just thought it was like that feeling of I've come home. Yeah. So for me, it was and I hadn't committed to anything at that stage. It was quite lovely. I was sort of just putting my little toes in the water and seeing how I felt. But just, I go to work happy every day. People must think I'm a bit of a weirdo because I smile all the time. Everyone chats to you when you're in the kitchen. There's just this lovely culture. And it's, and I love the detail. I love the podcast. The team were of 5 women. We're all of different sort of eras, and it just works together beautifully. And I love going back to longer form storytelling, and it's been a treat.
If anybody's not familiar with it, who is listening to this podcast, The Detail is the podcast you want to look for. I'm not fishing for drama here, but you strike me as someone who's just infinitely positive. But over all this time, there must have been times that were really stressful and hard to work through.
Oh, for sure. God, I wouldn't be human if there wasn't. I hard on a personal front. We had a breakup of a relationship, which was very hard when you're both working in the industry. But I am, I think, maybe that makes me very shallow.
No,
but
not at all.
I'm very glass half full. And I probably always have been. I love a laugh. I love a banter. I love a flirt. I just think, and there are tough times, but for whatever reason, a Bev comes into your life, or something happens. I came back and I was out of sorts when I came back from a Australia correspondent, and you come back into a newsroom, you go from being boss to nothing. And Jennings rang me, Mark Jennings, and he said to me, Amanda, it's like a game of cricket. He said, normally you'd go out there and hit me a century. Right now you're hitting me a 60. And, I just laughed. And those little moments in life that snap you out of whatever you are or whatever you're going through. Hard things. It's been well documented now. The children, not being able to, but I've always had beautiful people around me, an amazing mum, amazing husband now, amazing dad and family and sister and stuff. So gorgeous best friend. So I always feel well protected and supported, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I think you have to have a disposition, and if it's not there naturally, you can train it, to see the good, the beautiful, and the true that is there. I mean, a Bev.
Yes.
You could have turned around. You were offered the opportunity to turn around. You didn't take it. And even walking in and talking to Bev, you could have been so lost in the moment that you would have lost the story. You wouldn't have seen it. I think you've got to have eyes. You've got to be open to the good, the beautiful, and the true, which will pull you through those down moments. I
think it does. And, raised Catholic, there's something in that, really supportive, loving family, something in that. I have a husband with unconditional love, something in that, where you have been able to trust the people around you and count on their love. It's going very deep now, isn't it? But there's something beautiful in that, and it's reassuring, it means you can make a mistake and it's going to be okay. But I am probably more on the positive side than I am the negative. I love to love. I love laughter, love a joke. My husband's always like, you are the queen of innuendo. I just love making him laugh. Yeah, and it's nice.
Yeah, that's good. There's another quick story I want to talk about, because you did send it through, Karain. And I ask because this is an amazing story as well. We won't give this one as much time, but it's definitely worth telling, because I think it's, again, another great example of a good human who's been through some tough stuff and caught your attention.
Do you know how I got that story?
How?
Through my mother.
Mums.
Karain used to work for my father. So Karain, weirdly, he worked for Dad in Gisborne, and Dad treated him like a son. And he was very much part of the Gillies family, but I was away. He came in after I'd left Gisborne. But I always knew him by name, and everyone loved him. He was just one of those hard-working guys. And then he and his wife, they left and went up Hamilton Way and stuff. And Mum said, Karain's been in an accident. And I was like, oh, okay, bless. And she just adores him. And then she said, I think you should do a story on it. And so I told work, and work was like, oh, okay, just sort of, he had an accident with a boat, it just didn't seem that much. And then Mum was like, I guess for lack of his pimp. She was just saying, I think you need to do this story. I think you need to do this story. And eventually I went down to Hamilton, and wow, what a guy. And what a again, his faith is Mormon, and he's very high up in his church, and he puts it down to that. He said it's his faith that got him through. But I'll give you the condensed Reader's Digest version for your listeners. In Fiji, went diving to find Finding Nemo pictures for his grandchildren. As he came up, he was in a no-boat zone, and a boat went over him with a propeller, which took out probably a quarter of his brain, skull and everything. And by rights, he should be dead. He should have bled out then, but didn't. He got put on the boat, got to Fiji. They were able to treat him, even though there was a 10-hour delay with the flights. Everything worked in his favour. And he should have been paraplegic. He should have never woken from the coma. He should have never been able to talk or see or anything. And every single step he bet. And now he's fully functioning and back with living with his family. And it's incredible. And the little twist in that was when they did one of the operations is they found the early stages of cancer, which they would have never have found if he hadn't have had that accident. So that could have ultimately claimed him, if not that. But he said it's his faith and his strength and everything that got him through that story. And he talked about the importance of having travel. Like, there were so many twists and turns in that story. It was incredible. But again, you met him, and my cameraman Blair and I just walked out of there and just went, what a guy, so grateful, so big-hearted, so much faith and believing, the most beautiful family. And I thought, that's kind of how you want to live your life, And he just gives so much, and he loves a person who loves to laugh, so he's still giggling and making jokes in the middle of all this. Yeah, and it stuck with me, and I thought, to go through that and still come out smiling and laughing and being a beautiful person on the other side that's inspirational.
Yeah. The reason I asked to add that one is because, again, I just think it continues to capture what so much of New Zealand journalism is actually about. There are the justice stories, but most journalists I meet want to tell those stories. They got into it to be storytellers, to sit down, listen to people and tell those really interesting stories. So thank you.
Can I ask you one question?
You can.
What's been your favourite interview or story that you've done?
Oh,
sorry, put you on the spot.
No, that's
you had the good grace to think of it.
I was just boasting about it to someone earlier today.
Oh, good.
Robert Fisk.
Yes.
It was way back in the day. I was doing a Good Friday show for News Talk ZB. It was before social media and our phone cameras. And Robert was in Fallujah. It was a little after the Iraq invasion, but Fallujah was still really dangerous and recognised as dangerous. And I'd organised to interview him at I think it was about 2 a.m. New Zealand time.
Yep.
So I had in my lounge a mic stand set up with a recording microphone. So I had my alarm set for like 1:30. Got up, came down in my pajamas. I'd read The Great War for Civilization, his big fat book on the Middle East. So I was well prepped. I called him. And he whispered to me down the phone, he said, I'm in the middle of the street in Fallujah. It's too dangerous to talk. I'll get back to you when I'm at the hotel.
Holy.
I know. Yeah. It's fabulous.
I shouldn't say this, but I love this.
Yeah. Yes, so I'm standing there in my pajamas waiting for Robert Fisk in Fallujah to get back to his hotel room.
To dodge the bullets to get back safely. Yeah.
So he gets back to the hotel room, he gets in touch, we record the interview. And I'm like, man, if this had been now, I would have had a photo taken of myself, I would have filmed it, I would have been putting out little reels of it. It would have been magnificent. But that's probably my favourite interview. And
that's a wee bit cool. I like this.
Yeah, and I can't actually remember the content of the interview, so I want to find if it was archived in some way. But that image of me standing in my pajamas in my lounge talking to Robert Fisk in Iraq is just a magnificent image in my head.
Juxtaposition of two scenarios. That's a treat. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Was he good talent? Like, once you actually got him, do you remember if he gave,
he was good talent.
He was good.
And the privilege of someone who'd been on the front lines as Russia had invaded Afghanistan, then as the US had invaded Afghanistan, who'd covered lots of stuff in Israel, was in Iraq. Like that, to interview someone who had had those life experiences was a privilege. And I say that, but to answer your question just a little bit further, I've had the privilege of interviewing some amazing people. I mean, I'm a lover of the media and the craft of media and the craft of interviewing. So doing this podcast, Recovering, has felt like a great privilege. But I'm a lover of talkback.
Yep.
So my Sunday night shows, every time I turn that microphone on, I feel like it's a great privilege. And the personalities that call that show, I think about my regulars and the number of times I roll my eyes sometimes. But it's magnificent to just talk to, again, average Kiwis, hear their stories, and every single person has a story.
Oh, yeah.
So those talkback callers are a whole other breed, because to call talkback radio, you've got to be slightly different, but they're all magnificent.
Favourite talkback caller, do you have one?
We have this, now you're interviewing me.
Sorry.
We have this wonderful lady who calls up, her name is Moya. She has the most amazing stories. Went on honeymoon with her daughter when her daughter got married, slept in the same bedroom because they just couldn't have a lot of stuff, and accidentally...
There are so many questions I have about that.
I know. Accidentally lit her daughter's hair on fire one night when they were in the bedroom. It's like, I know.
Oh my God. This is outstanding.
Yeah, so Moya's magnificent.
Okay,
yeah.
I like Moya too.
All right, we need to shift back to you.
Sorry, yes.
So, last question.
Yes.
And I ask this of every guest.
Yeah.
Future of media and journalism in Aotearoa, New Zealand. What do you think it looks like?
Oh, normally I would say scary, but, and I like a good but. Yeah, I like you so. Sorry, that's the child in me. Sorry, you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean.
Okay.
I know what you mean both ways.
Yes. Excellent. Oh, cut. But I think it's changing so fast. By God, it's changing. It is hard to keep up with. And I think I liken it to when I started at the 6 p.m. news at TV3, there was just 6 p.m. in Nightline. Everyone wanted to be on 6. You got on at 8:30, you got given a story. You had a whole day to work on a 90-second to 2-minute story. Holy grail at 6. Hope you made it to air. God forbid you made the first break, or heaven forbid you made lead. Then you went to the pub, you went home, all good. By the time I left, there was a 5:30 a.m. show, the morning show, 11:30 a.m. show, 4:30 p.m. show, 5:30 at Prime, 6 p.m. news, 7 o'clock with Project, 8 p.m. news, late news. Then you've got the digital beast, and boy, that beast is hungry. Then you had to do radio crosses. Then you get to social media, and then you had to tailor it to X, to TikTok, to Instagram, to Facebook or whatever. You had comments section, you had LinkedIn, you name it, right? And so fast it's dirty, it's hungry, it's immediate, it's all that kind of stuff. Kids burn out a lot. But, again, with that I think comes opportunity. And I think there are so many different platforms now. Gone are the days where you'd be like, good evening, I'm Amanda Gillies, welcome to the news. That's gone. You've got so many different ways to tell stories, so many different places to tell stories. AI, yes, will play a role in the future and is already playing a role. That scares the hell out of me, and I want to put my head straight in the sand and say, please go away. But I think if used right, it can be fantastic. And I think we've just got to embrace it. Hold on tight, but storytelling is going to be different, but you can tell the story you want to tell it to your audience in the way, they want it and you want it to be told. And I think if we embrace the opportunity and keep up with the speed as much as you can, and because every person, as you say, has got a story to tell. We've just got more platforms now to tell it, and we've just got to embrace that and, hope it's okay. Yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
I'm not going to tell you.
Oh.
I'm going to end this.
We could be here for hours.
We could be.
This has been a treat.
I'm going to end it by saying thank you for being one of the legends. I want to say thank you for your 23 years of service at TV3, for serving across so many different platforms. I want to thank you for being someone who gets excited about telling people's stories that otherwise may not be heard. I want to thank you for seeing their colour and their beauty. I want to thank you for being able to see the beautiful, the true and the good, for keeping a smile on even when times have been tough. I think it's a good example to other people. I want to thank you for the storytelling that you continue to do. I think the work that you do is important. So, Amanda, thank you.
Thank you.
Ngā mihi nui, Amanda. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. Thanks to Radio New Zealand for hosting this series, and thanks to you for giving some of your precious time to listen. A big shout out to Mallory Carey and Josh Couch for producing this episode of Recovering. If you appreciate this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and share it with someone else who would like it. And remember to follow in your favourite app to catch future episodes. At Media Chaplaincy New Zealand, we value our media. We demonstrate this by offering free, independent and confidential support for media professionals. With a solid and caring team in various parts of the country, we're here to help. If you work in the media industry and you want to chat to someone who's there to listen, head to mediachaplaincy.nz to arrange a catch-up, and the coffee's on us.